So, breaking developments out of Puerto Rico. The government has admitted that it will be unable to service all of its $72 billion worth of debt. With me to discuss where this leaves Puerto Rico is Joe Rosenblum from Bernstein. Joe, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Well, were you surprised at Puerto Rico finally admitting they wouldn't be able to service all its debts?
I don't think a good number of investors were surprised. The economy had been turning negative for quite some time. Population decreases, the budget just more difficult to balance each year. So for many it was rather inevitable.
Where does this leave Puerto Rico now?
Well, we have to get the specifics, which we may hear later today from the governor's presentation. That may be general, so that over the next few weeks we may need to wait for the specifics, but that will then involve negotiating with the creditors, and that will likely be a difficult process.
Yeah, how far is the rot going to go? There's such a big tangle of debts here. You have general obligation debt at the top. You have all these different revenue streams pledged to different parts. You have pension bonds. How deep do you think the mess is going to get?
I think it'll cover virtually all classes of debt. They may go along different tracks. The Commonwealth negotiating with its prep or electric utility creditors separate from its general obligation, but it's hard to disassociate the general obligation from the COFIN or sales tax bonds. That's likely to be part of one process, very likely to include the highway bonds because it involves tax revenues, and some claim that there's a first claim on that revenue by the GO bonds. So we'll see some distinct different classes, but a lot of it's sort of pulled together.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a potentially sort of combative restructuring. But even if, let's say, assume that they manage to get that done, what kind of economic state is Puerto Rico? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel for them?
Well, it's clear that they need economic growth to be able to sustain a budget and deliver all the services that need to deliver, and also to meet their debt commitments. And frankly, we don't right now see any kind of engine of growth on the island. So it's likely to be a long and difficult journey.
And obviously the government looks extremely unlikely to bail them out in any sort of way. But could there be sort of a soft bailout, some sort of helping hand, maybe allowing them to restructure under Chapter 9, or maybe some sort of tax break for companies that are based in Puerto Rico, which they used to have? And when that expired, that's when some of the economic problems started.
I haven't seen nothing that sort of indicate any kind of substantial response by the federal government. But yes, there's some possibility of getting Puerto Rico authorized under Chapter 9. But remember that Chapter 9 traditionally is for local units of government, and here we're dealing with a central government. So it would have to be a different kind of Chapter 9 for Puerto Rico. Again, I don't see vast movement on the part of the federal government to sort of step in with these kinds of things. Although in the past, certainly the federal government has gotten involved, both in New York City's case in the past, and in sort of private corporate side in a number of instances there as well. But it's all sort of politics in Washington, and it's hard to predict.
Yeah, it's a bit of a black box. What about the wider muni market? Puerto Rico is one of the biggest issuers of municipal debt in the US. How does this set up the market? Is it going to be able to shrug this off?
Certainly we expect some immediate increase in volatility. That wouldn't be a surprise. But we think longer term, or intermediate and longer term, the market should sort of calm down, remembering that Puerto Rico debt is less than 2% of the total market. So that volatility may present some opportunities for investors in non-Puerto Rico debt. But certainly, as sort of getting back to your question, we do expect some immediate volatility.
Okay, well, Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.